Discuss the fifth cranial nerve. That is the trigeminal nerve. As you are aware, when I was doing the introduction to the cranial nerves, I made mention that trigeminal nerve is both motor and sensory. And trigeminal nerve is associated with 4 nuclei. These 4 nuclei are distributed along the 3 parts of the brainstem, including some aspect of the spinal cord. So 3 out of the 4 nuclei of the trigeminal nerve are sensory, while the remaining one is motor. So the 3 sensory nuclei, one of it that is located below the rest is located within the spinal cord, and that is what is called spinal nucleus of trigeminal nerve. In the spinal cord, this nucleus is longitudinally placed and it extends upward up to the level of the medulla oblongata. And also in the pons, we have another nucleus of the trigeminal nerve known as the principal pontine nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and in the midbrain we also have the 3rd sensory nucleus known as the mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Similarly, the 4th one, which is the motor nucleus, is located also within the pons. So in the pons, there are 2 nuclei associated with the trigeminal nerve. One is sensory, the other one is motor. The sensory is larger, as I have discussed before. The motor is smaller. And so all these nuclei, their own axons, some of the axons come out, while some of the axons of the trigeminal nerve go inside because they are sensory. So they carry sensory information and go inside the pons, while the motor axons, they come out of the pons together with the sensory, and they go out to supply the areas where they supply. So it means that motor information, for planning and initiation of motor movement of masticatory muscles of mastications, muscles that we use to chew food, So motor information for chewing and everything comes from the motor cortex, descend into the motor nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, and then the axons get out of that motor nucleus and get out through the trigeminal nerve itself. So the remaining, the information from the head and neck, sensory information, including our temperature, pain and temperature, crude touch and pressure, fine touch, discrimination touch, and vibration sense and what have you. Informations are all collected from the head and neck, and those axons, the nerve fibers carrying this information, they go through this trigeminal nerve, and then they go into these 3 sensory nuclei before they finally form a tract, and then they form the trigeminal meniscus, and then they ascend into the ventro-posteromedial nucleus of the thalamus before the information finally gets into the post-central gyrus. You understand? The sensory gyrus of the cerebral cortex. So now, this trigeminal nerve, the nerve comes out of the midpoint of the pons, and then, relates to one ganglion known as trigeminal ganglion or Gasserian ganglion. This trigeminal ganglion is located in the middle cranial fossa, and it is located within a small or shallow depression known as trigeminal cave. And it is located in the middle cranial fossa. So that nucleus is a little bit flat, and this ganglion, from it, you have 3 divisions of the trigeminal nerve emanating from it. You get it? So we have one of the divisions of the trigeminal nerve known as ophthalmic division or V1. The V is just the representing 5, while the 1 is first branch of the trigeminal nerve. So the second division is what is called maxillary nerve or maxillary division of the trigeminal nerve, or V2. And then the third one is what is called mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve. So trigeminal nerve has 3 divisions: ophthalmic, maxillary, and mandibular. Don't forget that I said that it's associated with 4 nuclei. These 3 divisions, they are also associated with 4 ganglia. These ganglia, they are associated with virtually most of the cranial nerves that we are going to discuss later on. So, but the trigeminal nerve is associated with all the 4 cranial nuclei. Are you clear? So these nuclei include one that is located within the orbit, that is ciliary ganglion. The other one that is located within the pterygopalatine fossa, that is pterygopalatine ganglion. There's another one that is located just below the foramen ovale, that is what is called otic ganglion. There's another one that is located just around the floor of the mouth, that is what is called submandibular ganglion. Are you clear? So now we have seen that trigeminal nerve is associated with 4 nuclei, 3 divisions, and also associated with 4 ganglia. So now let me try to explain in a simple term the branches of all these divisions, the 3 divisions. The first division, that is the ophthalmic division, is purely sensory. So this ophthalmic division, it enters into the cavernous sinus. So all the 3 branches, all the 2 branches here, they enter into the cavernous sinus. So the ophthalmic division enters into the cavernous sinus similar to the way the remaining previous cranial nerve that I discussed also pass. If you can remember, we said that we have oculomotor nerve, we have trochlear nerve, now we have the ophthalmic nerve lying below the trochlear nerve. Are you clear? So we have ophthalmic division going into the cavernous sinus. From the cavernous sinus, it gets out of the cavernous sinus, it enters into one foramen known as what is this foramen? It is called the foramen, the superior orbital fissure. Are you clear? So it passes into superior orbital fissure. From the superior orbital fissure, it now gets out of the superior orbital fissure and divides into 3 branches. These 3 branches include the frontal nerve, the nasociliary nerve, and the lacrimal nerve. So the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve divides into 3 divisions. Although these divisions of the trigeminal nerve, they emanate from within the cavernous sinus. So it means that all these 3 branches that I made mention, if this is the cavernous sinus, so it means that all these 3 divisions, they come from inside. You get it? So we have all these 3 divisions here. We have this one, and then we have this one. So we have the frontal nerve, we have the nasociliary nerve, and now we have the lacrimal nerve. The frontal nerve, as it enters into the orbit, it gets out of it, it divides into 2 divisions, what we call supraorbital branch and supratrochlear branch. The supraorbital branch of the frontal nerve supply the region over the orbit and also part of the scalp up to the level of the lambdoid suture here at the back. Are you clear? So we have supraorbital division of the frontal nerve, getting out of the orbit to supply the area here of the forehead and then the scalp up to the level of the lambdoid suture. So it means all these areas now above the head is being supplied by this supraorbital nerve. The supratrochlear also supplies the area around the frontal area and around the trochlear portion of the frontal bone, frontal area. So these two branches, they are responsible for all the sensation around the frontal area here and the area over the head. So the lacrimal branch of this ophthalmic division, it supplies the lacrimal gland. You know that we have a lacrimal gland that is located in the superior aspect of the orbit. And so lacrimal gland is responsible for the lacrimation. So the lacrimal nerve supplies, you know, the lacrimal gland and also supplies the conjunctiva, you know, of our eyeball, as well as conjunctiva of that is the membrane in our eye, and also it supplies the area of some part of the area of the eyelid. So this lacrimal gland supplies area adjacent to it, apart from it supplying the lacrimal gland, supplying the conjunctiva, supplying part of the eyelid. Similarly, the nasociliary nerve, you know, as it gets out of the orbit, you know, within the orbit, it supplies the sinuses, the ethmoidal air sinuses. You know, ethmoidal air sinuses is divided into anterior, middle, and posterior. So the ethmoidal air sinuses receive some branches from the nasociliary nerve. So it gives rise to the anterior and posterior branches to the anterior and posterior ethmoidal sinuses. And at the same time, it also gives a branch that goes into the nose to supply the nasal mucosa of the nose, you know. And apart from supplying the nasal mucosa of the nose, it comes out of the nose and supplies the branches around the dorsum of the nose. So that means it's supposed to say that nasociliary nerve, apart from supplying the ethmoidal air sinuses, both anterior and posterior, it also supplies the nasal mucosa. That is why it is called nasociliary. It supplies the nasal mucosa of the nose. That means it supplies the mucous membrane of the nose, and some of the branches come out and supply the dorsum of the nose as external nasal branches from the nasociliary. Similarly, this nasociliary nerve also communicates with the ciliary ganglion. If you can remember, I said that this trigeminal nerve is connected with these four ganglia. So the nasociliary, you know, connects with ciliary ganglion. Okay? So now we have seen the ophthalmic division of the trigeminal nerve and where it supplies. So how many places does it supply? It has how many branches? This one, the frontal has supraorbital, supratrochlear, 2 branches. The lacrimal branch, you know, division supplies a branch to lacrimal gland, supplies a branch to the conjunctiva, supplies a branch to the part of the eyelid. 3 branches, right? So if you now take the nasociliary nerve, it supplies branches to the posterior and anterior ethmoidal air sinuses. So it gives 2 branches there, and then it comes into the nose, supplies the mucous membrane of the nose. That is a branch to that side, and then some of the branch it comes out to supply the external surface of the nose, termed as external nasal branch of the nasociliary nerve. Similarly, branches, you know, come into the branches come into the ciliary ganglion. Are you clear? So we have seen these branches from the ophthalmic division. So for the maxillary division, this maxillary division, as you know, it comes out of the cavernous, it enters into the cavernous sinus also. As it comes out of the cavernous sinus, it enters into the foramen rotundum. This is the foramen rotundum here. I didn't label it. So this is foramen rotundum. So this foramen rotundum is at the base of the skull, through which the maxillary division of the trigeminal nerve passes. So as the nerve comes out of the foramen rotundum, it relates to the pterygoid fossa. So within the pterygoid fossa, there are some connections between this maxillary division with the pterygopalatine ganglion. Okay? So again, the nerve divides into two major divisions. One, zygomatic branch or nerve, and second one, superior alveolar nerve. Okay? So the nerve, I said it gives branches or communicates with the pterygopalatine ganglion. So from this zygomatic nerve, from this maxillary nerve, it gives branches. Zygomaticotemporal nerve that supplies the zygomatic region and the temporal region and the zygomaticofacial division. So that nerve supplies the area around the zygoma and also around the facial, around the maxillary area here. Similarly, the superior alveolar nerve, from the name, it is around the upper jaw. So this nerve now gives branches to the external surface of the nose. That is what we call external nasal branches. If you can remember, this nasal ciliary also gives branches to the dorsum of the nose. Similarly, the superior alveolar also gives branches to the external surface of the nose, what we call external nasal branches. It also gives branch to the upper lip. That is what we call superior labial branch. It also gives branches or branch to the part of the gum, the inner upper gum from inside, and also the upper teeth, you get it, and also the mucosa, around that gum. So now these are the branches coming from the superior alveolar and the branches coming from the zygomatic nerve. So the mandibular division is both sensory and motor. Actually, the motor component of the trigeminal nerve, in the real sense, does not pass into the trigeminal ganglion. But in most of the tests, we will see that they said it passes through the trigeminal ganglion. What happens is that this nerve comes and lies by the side of the ganglion. So it's not from within. This ganglion is purely sensory. So now, when this mandibular division of the trigeminal, the sensory portion, comes out, well, most of the anatomists we tend to say comes out, but it gets into. You get it? So once this sensory part of the trigeminal nerve gets into the trigeminal ganglion, this motor accompanies it. Motor division accompanies it, so that it forms a single nerve like that. So this mandibular division of the trigeminal nerve, as it comes out of the this trigeminal ganglion, the mandibular division passes through the foramen ovale. So this is foramen ovale here. Foramen ovale, or you can call it foramen ovale. Ovale in Hausa, right? Foramen ovale. So now we're saying mandibular division passes into the foramen ovale. As it comes out of the foramen ovale, mainly it comes out now. The motor division or motor component of this mandibular division gives some branches into the optic ganglion. You get my point? So as it gives branches into this optic ganglion, fibers from the optic ganglion now they supply two muscles. What we call tensor, this branch is going to tensor veli palatini, and the other branch is what we call tensor tympani. Are you clear? So we have two branches emanating from branches from the motor part of the mandibular division that go into the optic ganglion, and fibers from the optic ganglion as they emanate, they supply these two muscles, tensor veli palatini and tympani. So that is part of the motor. Similarly, this sensory division of the trigeminal nerve, as it comes down, it divides into 4 divisions. The 4 divisions, one, there is what we call buccal branch. So this is the buccal branch of the mandibular division. And then the second one, which is this one, is called the lingual branch. And the other one here is the inferior alveolar division. Inferior alveolar division. And the last one, which is this one here, is what we call auriculotemporal division. Auriculotemporal division or branch. So now let us see where this branch is supplied. The buccal branch supplies or carries information from the oral cavity. That means sensation of pain, temperature, crude touch, and pressure around the cheek from the inner side. Are you clear? And also from the outer surface, from the skin. You get it? So all those information have been taken by the buccal division of the trigeminal nerve. And the buccal branch also, as I said, it also carries information, of this temperature and what have you from the upper jaw. As I said, that superior alveolar also carries information with regard to this pain, temperature, and whatever from the upper jaw, gum, upper teeth, and the mucosa around the buccal side. So also, this buccal branch also have some branches that carry information from the cheek, from the inner side and from the outer surface of the skin around that buccal area. Similarly, the lingual branch, this one, that is the second branch, right? Is it? Yeah, the second branch from this mandibular division. That is the lingual branch. This one carries sensory information from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. Pain, temperature, crude touch and pressure, fine touch and what have you. And even proprioception from the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. You understand? Plus the taste itself. If you can remember, we talked about taste previously with regard to the anterior two-thirds of the tongue. So similarly, also, this lingual nerve is also associated with this, kind of sensation. So this is the second branch of the mandibular division. The third division or third branch of the mandibular division is the inferior alveolar division or branch. Inferior alveolar branch. This one supplies the lower jaw. It supplies the lower gum, that is holding the teeth, lower teeth, and it also supplies the mucosa, covering the gums and the mucosa of the cheek around that side. So these are all branches emanating from the inferior alveolar division. It also supplies the mandible. Similarly, this superior alveolar also supplies the maxillary sinus. So the superior alveolar supplies the maxillary sinus. So this inferior alveolar supplies the mandible. Are you clear? So we have now seen the branches emanating from the inferior alveolar branch. Similarly, some of the branches, from this inferior alveolar division supplies some motor component, ironically, supplies some motor component probably coming from this motor division passing through the inferior division. Are you clear? So it means part of the motor component of the trigeminal nerve follows the inferior alveolar nerve, so that by the time inferior alveolar nerve supplies those areas as sensory branches, the motor component of it that accompanies it supplies what we call, this is the anterior valley of digastric, anterior valley of digastric muscle. And there is one muscle here that is forming the floor of the mouth. That is what we call mylohyoid muscle. So it supplies also the mylohyoid muscle. Mylohyoid muscle. So now we've seen that the mandibular nerve has 4 divisions. I said the first one, superior alveolar branch, supplying the nasal branch, external nasal, supplying the upper lip as superior labial branch, supplying the upper gum, upper teeth, and the mucosa around the gum. We have the buccal branch, supplying the mucosa around the cheek, and also the skin around that area. The lingual nerve, carrying sensation from the anterior to third of the tongue. This anterior to third of the tongue, including the taste and what have you, pain, temperature, and so on and so forth. And from this lingual branch now, fibers connect with this submandibular ganglia. So from the lingual branch, we have some connections with the submandibular salivary gland. So the third division is the inferior alveolar nerve or branch that supplies the lower jaw, supplies the mandible, supplies the lower gum, lower teeth, supplies the mucosa around the gum, are you clear? And also the skin around that area below here. Alright? And so this nerve comes out through one foramen here at the chin, known as mental foramen. So it comes out as mental nerve after supplying all those places that I've made mention. You can imagine all these are branches that I've told you. Several, subconsciously I've told you virtually all the branches. Are you clear? So now we are saying that part of the motor supply of this inferior alveolar that comes from this motor division supplies the mylohyoid, the muscle that forms the floor of the mouth, and also anterior belly of digastric. So you have nerve to mylohyoid and nerve to anterior belly of digastric. Are you clear? So the 4th division is auriculotemporal branch, which is the 4th division of this mandibular branch. So this auriculotemporal passes upward to supply the area around the temple and also lateral side of the posterolateral side of the cheek and what have you, and also part of the upper part of the auricle. That is why it is called auriculotemporal. Supplies the area around the temple and also supplies the area upper part of the auricle. You get my point. So this is the division, the areas of supply of auriculotemporal branch. Let me tell you as a general comment, all these 3 branches, with the exception of this, motor component, that means sensory portion of the mandibular, maxillary, and ophthalmic, so all give meningeal branches, the dura mater branches, and what have you. So this mandibular nerve, before it enters into the foramen oval, it gives a meningeal branch. Similarly, this maxillary division, before it enters into the foramen rotundum, it also gives a meningeal branch. Similarly, this ophthalmic, before it passes into the spheroorbital fissure, it also gives a meningeal. So all of them, they now give meningeal, or they carry sensation from the meninges, especially the dura mater. Are you all right? So now we've seen all the branches of this trigeminal nerve, and if you have a lesion affecting this trigeminal nerve, you are going to have multiple presentations. So the symptoms or signs are multiple with regard to the depending on which branch is affected. If it is ophthalmic division that is affected, let's say this one is cut. What happens? Sensation of pain, temperature, whatever, in the frontal area and upper part of the head is not there. Are you clear? So also since it is supplying the lacrimal gland, lacrimation is also impaired. Are you clear? So also the nasal ciliary branch of this ophthalmic, since it supplies the nasal mucosa, production of the mucus will also be impaired. So if you now come to the maxillary branch here, if it is cut, for example, sensation within the maxillary sinus, sensory information from the maxillary sinus, from the dorsum of the nose through this superior alveolar. So also when you now swallow something like hot water, when you are taking tea, or when you are eating meat or fish, and you have a prick from the backbone of the fish, you will not feel the pain because this branch is being cut off. So all these branches, anyone like this mandibular branch now, if it is being cut, the motor component is also being cut together, right? So this one supplies the motor nerve, supplies the motor division, supplies these two muscles that I've made mention before. That is connected, the branch is connected to the aortic ganglion, and then the two branches now emanate to supply tensor belli palatini and tensor tympani. The remaining portion of this motor branch of the mandibular nerve supplies the muscles of mastication. And those muscles, they are, number one, temporalis. Temporalis, we have medial stroke lateral pterygoid muscles, and the last one is masseter muscles. So this motor division supplies these 6 muscles: tensor belli palatini through the aortic ganglion and tensor tympani. Then the remaining portion of the motor goes to supply these 4 masticatory muscles. And so if it is cut, these muscles are going to be paralyzed. And so there will be no mastication. Let me have a break.